Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Journey to Tech with Craig. You don't want to miss this one today, as this is a jaw dropping episode. Are you ready? Let's get into it. Chapter 3: The Longest Job Interview. How long was your longest job interview? Was it 30 minutes? An hour? Or an hour and a half? Or 2 hours? Guess how long was my longest job interview? Was it 9.5 hours? 10.5 hours? Greater than 11 hours? Or almost 11 hours? The answer: greater than 11 hours. You don't believe me, do you? Well, you need to buckle up again for this one. Get some popcorn, chips, and your favorite snacks and see how I experienced this more than 11-hour job interview. The interview took place on a Thursday. It was a relatively warm day in the city. I was dressed for success and I arrived on time for my 8:30 a.m. interview. I was ready, or so I thought. I was not prepared for how long this would actually take. I was waiting for them to call me in at 8:30 a.m., which was the time scheduled for the interview. But 8:30 came and 8:30 went. I said, maybe they're a little delayed this morning and they may soon begin. But 2 additional hours passed. 9:30 came, 9:30 went. 10:30 came, 10:30 went. I started to wonder, they're seriously delayed today. But I still said they may call me in soon. Then an additional 1.5 hours passed. 11:30 came and 11:30 went. Then 12 p.m. came. At 12 p.m., I was finally called in. It was finally time for my interview. How did it go? Unfortunately, it didn't go well. I was nervous, and apparently, based on the interview, I didn't have the experience they were looking for, which made me even more nervous. Some questions they asked me, I was unable to answer as my mind was blank like a blank sheet of paper. I felt like a failure. After that session, I felt so disappointed in myself, and I said it is time to go back to the drawing board yet again. But there were 2 other segments left of the interview process, so I said, despite what happened earlier, let me see how best I can manage what was left. Next up was a test on a computer. That part was okay and fairly quick. I had no issues with that part. At the end of the main interview and that computer test, it was about 1:30 p.m. and it was back to the waiting room. Hunger strikes. At 2 p.m., hunger pains started hitting me like a ton of bricks. I started feeling lightheaded and felt like my head was going to fall off my body. Additionally, a headache started to knock at my door. But here was the dilemma. I was hungry, but I couldn't leave because I didn't know when they would call me in again. What was I going to do? Thankfully, this snack right here came to my rescue. A granola bar. I had it in my small pouch I carried with me. To maintain professionalism while ensuring that I don't faint due to lack of food, I briefly excused myself to the restroom, and in the privacy there, I quickly had it. It was a lifesaver. It gave me an additional fuel boost for 1 more hour. I was thankful. So I continued waiting. and at 3:15 p.m., it was finally time for lunch. Man, I was relieved. Finally, a break to fuel myself for the last part of the interview. The break lasted an hour, during which we ate and had conversations among ourselves, the candidates, and the interview panel. Then at 4:15 p.m., it was back to the waiting room. We were now waiting on the final leg. The panel still had a few more candidates to interview, so we had to wait until those interviews were complete until we could do our presentation. So we waited. 4:15 turned into 5:15, which then turned into 6:15. At this time, day was slowly turning into night. By the time it was 7:15, it was pitch black outside, and most persons who worked at the location, except the interview panel and us candidates, had already left. Yet, time crawled on. Fast forward from 7:15, which eventually turned into 10:15, before we were finally called in to do our presentation. At this point, the fuel from lunch had long run out, and I was both hungry and tired. I didn't know how, but I had to push through. So we were able to get together and craft our presentation and complete it in front of the panel. We finally made it to the end of this marathon interview, and then we were now allowed to go home. Speaking of home, about that, I forgot to mention to you guys that I had taken the bus out of the city for about 40 minutes to reach the interview. Everyone else who interviewed with me had driven, but I depended on public transport, and it was now 11 p.m. At this time, all buses had stopped running. Calling a taxi to take me home would be extremely expensive. So what was it I was supposed to do? Thankfully, one of the persons who were interviewing with me was kind enough to give me a ride, both to get some food because all of us were hungry at that point, and then to take me home. A total stranger. Thankfully, I reached home safely, and that night, when I hit the bed, I was out into sleep in no time. So how long did this entire process last? The interview process lasted a record 14 and a half hours. I have never seen this in my life, and this was an experience I would never forget. This was one of the many experiences I had in trying to get a job in tech. This has been etched on my mind forever. Ladies and gentlemen, you have joined me on this series where I spoke about my personal journey into the tech field. We are now close to the grand finale. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share these videos, and turn on your notifications so that you will know when the grand finale video drops. For today's video, I also want to hear from you guys in the comment section if you have ever had a job interview this long, and if yes, what was that like? Additionally, tell me of your most memorable job interview experiences in the comment section as well. Thank you for joining me on this journey, and see you in the next episode of Journey to Tech with Credge.